A place where someone still thinks about you is a place that you can call home. Purry Sage Naruto. My favorite movie is Grave of the Fireflies. It's like Studio Ghibli film. It's one of the animated masterpieces. I don't care what nobody say. But that is not as known as, as some of his other work, like Spirited Away or, Howl's Moving Castle, stuff like that. It's one of his earlier works. But I lived my life with that theme, that mantra, I guess. I watch a lot of stuff, but I tend to watch a lot of anime sometimes when I get into it. And there's always this recurrent theme of family or, misfits that get together and become a family. And I've made decisions based on those viewpoints, to be a good friend, be there for someone, love them. And anime kind of shows, it's almost like, I wouldn't say unconditional love, but they get real close to it. I've never seen characters so determined to do, the right thing or heroic acts just for friendship or just for someone that they love. And I've taken on that archetype of a character, of a person. And I say it in the most human way, just moral standpoint. There's certain things that some people, I don't want to do that, that couldn't be me, but is it the right thing to do? What's morally correct? And I've always been that way when it comes to loyalty. Sometimes I have fallen and I dropped the ball, but for the most part, I've always wanted to see someone happy and to just a camaraderie of my people, of my peers, of, just people, period. And I remember that my father, he was a big fan of Studio Ghibli. And we grew up watching these films. And me being the only child for like 10 years, it really stuck to me. So I kind of handle people with the essence of that, of those teachings. Honestly, in the comparison, when it's contrast to how life and how people are, is it the best thing to do? No. You will get hurt in these streets, okay? But is it the wise thing to do? Yes. Because honor, authenticity, integrity, loyalty, vulnerability, all those things, they were so real years ago that now they have become almost a figment of imagination. They are now where you can only see them in animes, in works of art of like Studio Ghibli. And it shows in other mainstream shows, I was thinking about it, and every person that I have gotten to know on a more intimate level have all had this fantasy, or just an idea in their head of what family would look like, should look like, and it's always like the Huxtables, or Family Matters. In my case, Studio Ghibli. So in the film, there's a reason why I speak about it. My life kind of reflects two of the characters in the film, and as I look back, it's a very very similar to the recurrent themes of the person's personality, how they interact with other people. So there is a brother and a younger sister, and in the film, they had their family, and they had war. There was a huge war, and nuclear, and they end up losing their parents. The mother ends up dying inside the war as being a casualty due to bombs, stuff like that. So they didn't have anyone. So where they went afterwards was an aunt, and the aunt was not so nice. She very much was all in it for what the mother had left, the money. She didn't really care about the well-being or emotional well-being of the children. And that happens often. How many family members do we have where material things hold more weight than the actual emotional stability of a child? And it happens a lot. We see it all the time. People having kids just for a check. And it's not to actually have offspring of yourself, a legacy to give to, or there's no heavyweight meaning behind it, but a check, or I guess a stunting piece. He's all, my child's all decked out in X, Y, and Z. That child don't know nothing about that. That child want Batman light ups. But a lot of people do it. And if you have the means to do it, go ahead. But is that your sole purpose? Is that your drive when it comes to your child? Your child wants Spider-Man. Are you going to say no and get him Jordans? It's a question you just have to ask. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't grow up, I didn't have it all. And we struggled. We struggled quite often. Pretty unorthodox with some of the stuff, but it is what it is. This is how we grew up. But we had each other, and even though some things were in darker lights, when you're in it at that age, you don't see it. So you just see family time. You just see all the dinners that you eat. You see all the times where, you had to make best and just play whatever. You see only, Studio Ghibli films. And it kind of helped me come into this cocoon of fantasy of what life should be like. And it fascinated me for years. Is there a place on this earth that is like Studio Ghibli? Not in a sense where things are cartoonish, and, people are going out for adventures and stuff like that. Nah. But is there a place where values are upheld, are upheld? Is there a such thing as true friendship? Is there such thing as love? True love, without harm, or abandonment or rejection, abuse. A lot of people in this world, you want so much, but that's not what you received, and you kind of have to still hold your ground. I still hold on to the teachings of Studio Ghibli. And it's not because people have, they try their hardest. Things in life have tried their hardest. But yes, there's a realization that not everyone's going to be like you. And I had to get that in my head. I've been hurt quite a few times, but I would still adhere to the principles, of qualities, attributes that you should have with people. So in the film, brother and sister, they had each other. And soon, with them living with the aunt, that soon dries out, and she's just like, you guys gotta go. And this is like an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, something like that. I think he's like 10 or something like that. But they were on their own, and they had no money because the aunt, she used all that up. So she told him, you gotta go. So they ended up trying to just fend for themselves, and just try to make it work. So I say this because I'm trying to make it work in a situation that is more of a hindrance than a possibility. It's one of the hardest things to try to achieve. It's really hard to kind of see everything in a big picture when you are surrounded by obstacles. You're surrounded by, you're not going to make it, so I had to get to the point where, looking at the film with them as they, go time on, he was, the brother was pretty much, all he wanted to do was just to make his sister happy. He wanted to be able to feed her. They had a place to stay, and they found like a little cave, a little dirt patch, and they made a little house. He found a pan and stuff like that, and there was a river nearby, and she would run in the water, and she would just be a 5-year-old, and he would be, the parent, I would say, but they made it work for a little bit. And as the story progresses, the sister, she gets sicker, because it's poor nutrition. It's times of war. Everyone is on food rations. Ain't nobody trying to give out no food. And you got these 2 kids that are pretty much begging, yo, can I just get anything? Can I get the scraps? Doesn't matter. And people don't care. They don't care how old you are. They don't care. It's all about, I gotta eat, or I got my own family, and these kids starved. They did, period. And you can see that, he would save up or try to do some kind of work, beg, just to scrap up whatever kind of money, and during times of war. And there were no opportunities for him to work. There's no buildings left, so he did end up finding a doctor. And she was in real bad shape. But in her mind, it didn't matter. She still got to run in the water. She still got to, go inside their dirt makeshift house. And she had a brother. And it's just one thing that they would do, I guess, just kind of make the blues go away. When there was no dinner, when, and you feel defeated, he would take fireflies. He'll put them in a jar. And then when it was time for them to go to bed, he let the fireflies out in their little ditch, and they would imagine whatever the hell they wanted to imagine. So, the little girl would, say, it's a circus of fireflies, and they would think of times of, when they were good times. times where, you know, they had the money to do certain things. And he would go with her on that journey. And the bond that they had was so great. He didn't abandon her. You know, he did what he had to do. He tried his best. But in the end, the little girl dies. Sorry, spoiler alert. But the sister, she passes away at 5. And he couldn't take it because that was all he had. And he ended up going into town, and he would hold her her jar, you know, of candies and for the Fireflies. And eventually he passes away too. I know, right? It's kind of dark for a Studio Ghibli film, but it is what it is. He does end up passing away with her, but in the last scene, it's like it's still the memory of them being in that cave, looking at fireflies, and imagining, you know, life when it was better. That's just what it is. But I equated my life to that because there is a connection on how you treat each other, even at, you know, doesn't matter the odds, you still hold to your virtues, still have integrity, you know, still be a good person. You have a choice, you know, and it's what you choose to do. You know, obviously, you know, there's going to be times where you are going to react, you know, things happen, you know, people pass away, you're going to get sad. It will be completely unethical to tell someone you can't get sad, you can't grieve, you know, or something that happened, you know, something got stolen, X, Y, and Z, whatever. You're allowed to be mad. Now, you're not allowed to act on it, the behavior behind it, but you are allowed to feel mad, you know, and I go back to it because that bond was what they had. And it was so great, nobody could break it. Nobody. And we come in this life to find our bonds. You know, there's certain people that you're supposed to meet in this world, and they are bonded to you. You know, it's just, it is what it is. And I grew up looking for these bonds, and the people I've met, you ever notice that, you know, you will always meet the same person, just in a different body, until you learn the lesson. And I said it before earlier, but people have this stipulation in their mind that life, what family and what love, friendship is supposed to look like, is an idea in their head. For wherever they got it from. You can get it from a comic book, get it from a book, you can get it from a TV show, you can get it from a movie. But there is an archetype that you have in your head. I think it's Carl Jung. He was under Sigmund Freud, I believe. But he came up with the correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that he came up with the system of having archetypes. So, you know, it's an archetype for being a villain, it's an archetype for being a hero, you know, other things like that, philanthropist, stuff like that. The hero, you know, people give up their life, stuff like that. But we have these archetypes in our head, and we actually put our behaviors to gear towards the archetype that we want in life. You know, we try to be that person. You, of course, yes, you have your own personality, X, Y, and Z, but you still adhere to that personality set. And my personality set was those two kids in that dirt ditch in the dark with they dragonfly, what they grow with their fireflies. It was just something special about it. But for the most part, child trauma, it is a trending image of what they think a family should be. And I've noticed it time and time again. And we try to fix these broken pieces within ourselves. Our jagged pieces, we try to come together to make it fit because we want that image so bad. Some people, they want a child. They want a child so bad, or they want marriage. They want marriage so bad, whatever. They want a group of friends. They want to be accepted. It's that band of misfits that come together and make a home for themselves, a home that nobody wanted to give them. Some people, it comes easy. Some people don't even have that problem, but for the ones that do, for the ones that didn't have family, or for betrayal of family, there is a longing of community. There's a longing of being a part of something. And some people spend a whole lifetime trying to achieve it. And yeah, it's sad that you couldn't find just a handful of good people in your life. Sometimes you want it, and people still hurt you anyway. Doesn't matter. But if you stick to your virtues, and the same virtues are in the Bible, not for nothing, they're still in the Bible. You stick to those virtues, and you just go to God. It's almost like all those things that you wanted, He does. I needed someone to hit not all my markers. And people would say, you got a list? My list is literally the stuff that people are supposed to already get. You're supposed to get respect. You're supposed to get, just being able to have integrity, just to be yourself, be vulnerable, stuff like that. And you would think that that's something that it shouldn't be on the list. Someone should have good intentions. Someone should have, a good skill set, of just character, just to have character. But that's not the trend. It's not, and it's not mainstream whatsoever. There are people that are out there that's like that, but it's not what's popular. And it's growing that to lose those traits are becoming the common ground now. And it's scary. It's scary. I fear for my son that has to grow up in this, because as the years go by, who's going to teach these archetypes to their kid? A Studio Ghibli film? I want to teach that to my son myself. I want to show him so this way he's not the kid that goes, oh, I saw a film, and that's where I got the longing from. I want him to know I had a family that did these things, and that's where I got it from. But, that takes healing. You have to heal certain things so that if, things not always going to go your way, but you still have to find a way to patch yourself up and keep going, because you're going to end up taking those wounds and bleeding all over everybody. I had to learn that quite often. When I was married, I was in the thick of it when it came to my wounds, and I dropped really low. I was cutting, I was doing all type of stuff. I was self-harming like crazy. But was it fair for my husband at the time? If you really think about it, it's not. It's not fair. It's one of those type of things like, yeah, I wish that, he made better choices. I wish certain things didn't happen. But then I also wish that I was healed. So, certain things wouldn't have been such a problem. There's a reaction to a reaction. And that's just how the world is. But if you can control your action, you can change your outcome. You can change your reaction. But it wasn't fair for me to put my happiness and trauma, something that a psychologist is trained for a number of years to do, on a mere man. It was going to go downhill anyway. At whatever point it was going to go down, and not everyone's perfect. He had his stuff too, but I had to take care of me. I had to become that person, and I wanted to say this before I do leave. I was searching all over the world, right, for this Grave of the Fireflies, this Bond, this anime. Are people really like this? Where in the world are people like this? And I found it. Being as, someone that's born in the U.S., I came to Taiwan, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever was able to witness. When I went over there, it's so warm and it's so friendly, and it's literally mi casa tu casa. Like, you walk down the street, people just hi, how are you? And people are just nice. People, it's I'll tell you a story with Taiwan. I went to a Starbucks, right? Because we were trying to be fancy, right? Anyway, we went there. We were trying to go to Starbucks, and we got coffee, whatever. And there was a girl there, and she was online. And she comes to me. She goes, "Are you a teacher?" And I'm just like, "No, I'm just here. I'm visiting a friend." And she was just like, "Oh, that's so cool," And she's like, "Well, do you want to hang out? Do you want to be my friend?" And I looked at her like, "Wait, what?" Did you just ask me, do I want to be your friend? We don't, it's not something you hear. People don't say that, just a flat out ask. It's something like a 5-year-old would ask, or 7-year-old kids do. But it's so pure. Her intentions were so pure, and you can tell it's just like, I like you. I just want to be your friend. And I'm like, in my head, F it. Sure. And we chilled out with her, and this is before I was married, but we chilled out with her. And I got to see Taiwan like I've never seen Taiwan before. So that friendship, I'm still friends with her to this day. It doesn't change. She knows my son. She knows my family. I know hers, and it's just one of those things. We still keep in touch with each other. And she's just like, "You need to come to Taiwan." And I'm like, "I know." But friendships are not like this, are not like that anymore. Where you can be able to sit there and tell that friend anything, and that friend just gets it, and I haven't spoken to her in a long time, and I kind of forgot that archetype. I forgot those attributes that you're supposed to have, but I'm getting them back. But those certain people that you do get in your life, God permits it. Cherish those people. They're rare. They are rare. You find somebody that actually has, they has their best interest out for you, then you need to definitely keep that person there for life, because you're not going to get many. And if you feel like you still got to put a fishing pole out there because you could probably do a little bit better, you're going to find yourself with an empty boat because you keep throwing back fish. Have a good night, everybody.